unfortunately, I missed all of that introductory bit, but hopefully you got the gist of that and the important stuff's to come. So without further ado, let's get started. And Matt, would you be so kind as to pick up on some of the investments, markets and pension pieces? I see Karen has also joined the call, and I completely forgot to send you the piece of information I was going to yesterday. So I'm sure Karen could jump in if you want her to. But Karen, I'm also going to mute you for now, so just to get rid of any background noise.
Morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Jones. I'm an independent financial advisor at Cullen Wealth. So we're a chartered financial planning firm based out of Stockport. So a couple of things that Sarah's picked up on there in terms of markets, pensions and investments. So there's a lot going on in the news in terms of coronavirus, and obviously that's had an immediate and significant impact on investment markets. So we've been speaking with a lot of our clients to talk to them about what's going on with markets and how it might affect them. I think the sort of key messages from Cullen Wealth, particularly to our clients, are it's not a time to panic. It's not the first time that markets have crashed, and it won't be the last time that markets crash. And markets have always recovered from the stock market crashes that we've seen in the past. So generally it's about time. So it's about time in the market rather than trying to time it. So we're urging clients not to panic. We are talking to them potentially if they're drawing on pensions and investments, just to talk about some things that they might be able to think about doing there. If you have a financial advisor and if you haven't heard from them and you have concerns, I'd urge you to speak to them. If you do want to speak to me separately about any concerns that you do have, feel free to get in touch. One of the other things that Sarah asked me to cover off in this morning's meeting as well, which might be helpful at the moment, was to talk a little bit around some of the state benefits that are available and have been available for a while. So in terms of statutory sick pay, universal credit, and employment and support allowance. So what I wanted to do just for a couple of minutes is just talk about those things and give you some of the key facts. Because as I say, these aren't new to coronavirus in terms of these benefits have been around for a while, but there's been some tweaks to try and support people through this difficult time. So statutory sick pay, in terms of your right to claim, it depends on your employment status and earnings. And it's there to cover you if you're off work sick or self-isolating. So employees earning more than £118 a week can claim £94.25 per week, which will be paid from the first day of sickness now. So as I say, one of the changes there is making that available from the first day. You still need to have a sick note, but you can now self-certify by going to NHS 111 online. So government's also announced for any employers that are joining the call today that it will fund the cost for statutory sick pay for employers with less than 250 people for up to 14 days. So that's statutory sick pay, just a bit about that. But if you're not eligible for statutory sick pay, you might be able to apply for universal credit or the new style employment and support allowance. And you can also look at applying these potentially if your income has dropped as well due to coronavirus. So universal credit is the big one. Obviously, if you're feeling well, but your income's dropped and you have less than 16,000 in savings, and that's the key number with universal credit, 16,000 in savings, you may be able to claim universal credit. So it's for people who are over 18 and up to state pension age. One of the questions that I noticed that have been passed around was about partners' tax position. If you do try and claim universal credit, it is essentially a joint application. So you'll be assessed as a couple. So if you're married or living with a partner, you have to apply as a couple. So if a partner has earnings or savings, that is going to affect your claim. So the amount you potentially would get with universal credit depends on your circumstances. So whether you're self-employed, employed, or a job seeker. So the way that it works with universal credit is an assessment takes place with a work coach, which is for obvious reasons now completed via the telephone interview. if you are working, then the hours you work will be taken into account. So there's not actually any limits on the hours that you can work. It's more about how much you earn when you are working. So one thing that has changed with universal credit is the government has announced an increase in the standard allowance by £20 a week, and the housing element has increased as well. So there are two slight changes because of coronavirus. So the main news, if you're self-employed for universal credit, is the minimum income floor, which is an assumed level of earnings, has been removed from the 6th of April, which should make it a little bit easier to claim. So universal credit for a single claimant who's over 25, if you have a successful claim, you'd probably be looking at about £410 a month from universal credit. So one of the big things with universal credit that I've been reading and seeing, there's been over 500,000 new claims recently because of coronavirus. So the advice really is, if you think you're affected, don't delay in making a claim. Get started, get logged on and have a look at it, because it could take up to 5 weeks for a claim to be. So a bit of a summary for me on universal credit. There is loads of advice out there online. Citizens Advice would normally help with claims and eligibility. I don't know how they're working at the moment, but yeah, do have a look online. So the other one that I was going to cover is employment and support allowance. Now there is some crossover now with universal credit. So universal credit pulled together a lot of other state benefits. So if you or somebody you know suffering with coronavirus and applies for employment and support allowance, the usual 7-day waiting period has now been removed. And you'll be paid from day one. So it has changed a little bit, employment and support allowance. So the new style employment and support allowance, you need to have been earning more than £118 a week for the last 2 tax years to be eligible. So essentially it's based on your national insurance record. If you do have a successful claim, for the first 13 weeks, if you're over 25, it's £73.10. And if you're 18 to 24, it's around 57. And then you'll fall into one of 2 groups, work-related activity group or the support group. So there are some state benefits that have been around for some time. There's been some tweaks to them to hopefully try and make it a little bit easier for people to claim, and you can claim online with those. If anyone's got any specific questions about any of that, please let me know or pop it in the chat box. And if anybody wants to chat separately about anything that's affecting them, whether it's their own pension contributions or insurance policy premiums, then feel free to get in touch and talk to me. I'd be happy to have a chat with you about your personal circumstances. Is that all right, Sarah? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, Sarah, you're on mute then.
I know, still got it. I was trying to be good, but no, that's great, Matt. Thanks ever so much. So again, I see there are questions coming through the chat box. We'll try and pick up on as many of those as we can. But for now, over to Janet, please.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm Janet. I'm an insolvency practitioner. I've worked for many years with businesses and individuals with financial problems. I'm used to helping businesses in crisis situations. I have to say that I've never had to consider so many businesses in crisis situations all at one time. However, the basic premises of what you need to do in a crisis situation is always the same, and they're not easy. Sometimes when it's the same in any form of crisis, really, personal or business, it's hard to face up to what's going on. But really, the first key message in a crisis is keep calm. Try to think strategically through for your business. What are the key things that you need to be doing for your business? Consider how you can be a leader to ensure that those that are around you are doing the best that they can. I know that over the last couple of weeks, it's been very challenging trying to get people working from home, trying to look at how you manage resources. But in a crisis situation, employees will always look to you as their leader. And if they can see that you're calm and working through the problem, they'll help you to do so. In terms of, Sarah particularly asked me to talk to you about cash and cash flow, and same thing applies, as really always applies in a business, and that is cash is king. So how do you make cash be king? So looking at perhaps the top sort of 3 things you should consider for your cash flow is, firstly, is there anything you can collect from anywhere? Work hard with the people that owe you money, with your debtors. Make sure that any cash that you can get from anywhere, you are getting into your business. In this crisis situation, there's a lot of worrying about where is my cash going, but be very careful to make sure that you're not forgetting that actually there might be sources of cash there that you should be working towards. So firstly, work to collect in those debtors. Secondly, other side of the coin, what can you do to reduce expenditure? So identify what is the absolute essential expenditure for your business and cancel everything else. That includes, and don't forget, the payment to HMRC for your VAT. They have specifically given that VAT holiday. Make use of it. But if you're paying by direct debit, don't rely on them to cancel that direct debit. Make sure that you've cancelled it. And the same applies for any other services that you think your business can survive without. Really, you've got to try and make sure that your expenditure is as low as you possibly can make it. Rob's going to talk later about furloughing your staff, so I'm not going to get too much into that, but that's another aspect of looking at your cash. Obviously, the government have aimed to ensure, the whole idea of furloughing is to ensure that people are not made redundant. But as a business owner, business manager, you have to think about whether that's the right option for your business. Is it the right thing to keep staff on when you are still going to have to find the cash to pay them? Is it the right thing when perhaps you're still going to have to pay 20% of their pay? So those are very, very, very difficult decisions for you to make. For all of us, we all look around at everybody around us, and we know that everybody is struggling. Everybody's in a difficult financial situation. But as a business owner, you need to focus on your business and think about how you're going to keep that business alive, and perhaps with a long-term view, because that means that in the future you will be able to employ people, you will be able to help people to earn a living, but that's by keeping your business going. So those are my first sort of 2: get the money in, make sure the money's not going out. And the third one is, where the money does need to go out, negotiate. So perhaps with a landlord, make sure that your landlord is aware of your situation, negotiate with them. The government certainly talked about for individuals that rent can be, or landlord should be waived, and that nobody can evict anybody in the first 3 months. But do the same with your business landlord. Talk to them. See how you can negotiate with them to bring any costs down. The same applies in terms of, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the business loans, but same applies as far as borrowed money is concerned. The banks will give you a payment break. I don't want to call it a holiday. It doesn't sound like much of a holiday, but they will give you a payment break, and that's the easiest way of easing your cash flow at this point. Borrowing money, I would say, as an accountant and insolvency practitioner, borrowing money is generally not the way to get out of a crisis. It's really trying to avoid that if you can. So there is the government grants available. That's a grant. That's a different thing. It's not borrowed money. But firstly, try to ensure that you are using what you have. Again, I think with the idea that money is going to be easily available, yes, the government's backing business loans, etc. There's an inclination to say, oh, let's borrow, that money's all going to be available. But at the end of the day, that money will have to be paid back. So the coming back to that cash flow question, cash is king. Keep it if you can. Get it in if you can. Hold on to it, don't spend it. And make sure that you are negotiating with anybody where you can reduce payments. So those are the sort of key questions in terms of cash. Have you done a cash flow forecast? And every business should have a cash flow forecast always. And I'm going to say, if you haven't, go to your accountant. Hopefully that might be Sarah at In Accountancy. Not Sarah personally. She's on mute. I can say what I like about her. But go to your accountant. Get them to help you. Some banks on their loan application websites have actually put up spreadsheets there for you to use to do a cash flow forecast. So use that. Use the resources that are available to you to manage your cash. The next thing then is to consider whether you should be looking at a business interruption loan. The government has obviously put forward that it's going to back up those loans, but there's a real question for you as a business owner of, do I really want that loan? Is it the right thing for me to do? And I think the description of it being a business interruption loan is a really good one, because it's saying, what's my absolute cash requirement in this period when my business is interrupted? Not, did I need to borrow money before this happened? Or do I believe that if I can get my business back on track that I'll need to borrow money afterwards? But what is my cash requirement in this period? And if actually, as you look at it, you're thinking, I really did need to borrow money before I came into this, then now is the time to really ask yourself the question of, was my business in trouble before this crisis? Because if it was, it might be time to say, I don't want to put any more money into it, whether that's your personal money, whether that's borrowed money. So that's a really, really challenging question to ask yourself. And especially at a point when you're saying, well, what does the future hold? But was it really the right thing for you now to put more money or to borrow money for that business? Or is it time to close the doors? I could keep on talking for a long time. There's all sorts of other aspects of this. Sarah, would you like to hand on, and maybe we can come back to questions?
Yeah, I think we
get you on mute.
I know I've taken myself off mute. If I could hand over to Rob Byerley, please, just to talk about furloughing. And I see some questions coming down the side here about furloughing specifically. So I'm sure Rob will cover as many of those as he can. And again, we'll pick up on them then shortly if needs be. So Rob, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good. So I'm Rob Burley. I'm co-director of Cornerstone Resources HR consultancy based in Hazel Grove. And today we're going to talk about the coronavirus job retention scheme, which for the first time brought the concept of furloughing into UK employment law. I've been talking about this obviously a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I always try and frame this conversation by saying that employment law is normally quite glacial in its introduction. Typically, it takes 18 months to 2 years to bring in new employment law, and therefore you have a lot of time to consult over the fine details, the niceties of how this is actually going to be implemented. And even then, we say that you don't necessarily know how that employment law is going to get enacted until it goes through the courts and case law follows on. So we have compressed that 2-year window into 2 weeks. Furloughing, say, didn't exist until the 13th of March. So this is all very brand new. And therefore, it's left a lot of questions unanswered. Now, the government did bring out some more detailed guidance yesterday, so we've been poring over it both last night and this morning to try and get the latest picture, which I'll communicate today. But it won't answer every single question. So there will be some things that we're still waiting for, and I'll come on to them as we talk a bit further. So what is furloughing? So furloughing is a temporary status change that has been introduced. It mirrors in many ways the concept of a layoff, which has been in UK employment law for a long time, which effectively means you're giving employees a temporary leave of absence, usually on zero pay. Now, the furloughing concept has been designed to retain employment during this tough time. So zero pay is not going to work for most people. So the government's looked at what they can do to support staff and support employment. And therefore, they've offered a scheme initially from the 1st of March to the 31st of May, which allows for 80% of salary to be paid up to a maximum of £2,500 per month. On top of that, employers' national insurance and the minimum pensions auto-enrolment contributions can be made on top of that sum. So we have this scheme that is available to all staff who were on payroll as of the 28th of February. Now, how do you access it? Well, it's open to all UK businesses and charities, but there are some specific clauses that have been put on the government site around the communication. It says, if your employer cannot cover staff costs due to COVID-19, they may be able to access support. Okay, so there are some caveats there. This is mainly for businesses that are struggling and they cannot meet their staff costs. It's not a blanket. You can put all your employees on furlough for cash flow purposes. So there has to be an absence of work for these people to complete before they are eligible for furlough. So how is it going to be operated? Well, first of all, in terms of negotiating with your staff, it is a change to terms and conditions. So normal consultation laws do apply. If you have the right for layoffs or short-time working in your contract of employment, then it can be implemented unilaterally by the employer. If it's not in the contract, then it's up to consultation. Now, if you've got less than 20 people impacted, that's individual consultation. There's no particular timelines. And, you know, how we run it with our customers is we've sent out an intention to put people on furlough now, because we don't have all the fine details of the scheme available. And once the government opens up its portal so you can claim that furlough payment back, we'll then issue a further letter to say this is how it's going to work for you. If you've got over 20 people who will be furloughing within a 90-day period, then technically you've got to consult for 30 days on a collective basis. If anyone is in that situation, I advise you to call me outside of this webinar so that we can talk about how you would do that in practice, because clearly if you are in financial distress, that's going to be a tough ask. So that's the mechanism of moving people onto furlough. How would you claim that money back? Well, HMRC are going to open up a specific portal. It's not been developed yet, and they have promised that it will be in place by the end of April. So clearly you've got a window now. If you're in a position where you've got staff with no work to do, they can't work from home, and you know, their job functions effectively ceased for the temporary period, then you've got a gap between now and at least the end of April before you'll start seeing money return. And that could mean that you're in a position where you aren't able to pay salary at this point in time, in which case you might need to put people on layoff as a temporary solution before coronavirus interruption, so the job retention scheme kicks in. However, it's not all bad news, because the furlough scheme is backdated to the 1st of March. So if you're in that position now where you haven't got work for employees, but you can't afford to pay the April salary, you can backdate it once the money is received from HMRC. Again, this is a contractual change, and again, this needs to be communicated and consulted on very carefully. So if you're in that situation, please reach out for further advice. Just clicking through, because there's so much detail on here, I want to make sure that I'm giving you a good overview. So things to think about if you have someone who you are going to furlough and they go on to 80%, there is no obligation to top their salary up to 100%. If you choose to do so, and that is down to individual employers, whether they can afford to and whether they are wanting to do that for their staff, then the government will still only reimburse you at the 80% level. That includes the on-costs of national insurance and pension auto-enrolment. So you would carry the extra 20% for that additional cash. Plus, anyone who is on more than £30,000 a year, that portion of salary above 30,000 is not covered in this 80%. So is that maximum of 2,500. So it's very clear, if you've got some highly paid members of staff working for you, then they're not going to receive exactly 80% of their salary, their contractual salary. It could be quite a bit less than that. So again, it's all about the communication and being clear and upfront with your employees. Now, we've had a number of questions that have come through about directors of small businesses and what can they claim in terms of support. And again, there's some gaps in this. I've actually written to my MP today to get some further clarification. What it seems to suggest is if you are an employee, which most directors of limited companies will be, then you could theoretically self-furlough. However, the guidance around furloughing is that you should complete no work for your business. Just trying to get the exact phrase here. So to be eligible, employees cannot undertake work on behalf of their organisation, including the provision of services and the generation of revenue. Now, what I've asked for from my MP today is clarification about what that actually means for directors. So you've got an obligation to run payroll. Is that classed as providing services to your organisation? If you were putting some posts on LinkedIn referencing your company, is that classed as marketing and revenue generation? And we need clarity as directors about what we can and cannot do if we are able to furlough. Because what we don't want is to have a position after this window has expired and we're back to normal business practice, that HMRC come after us for any money that has been provided to directors in this case, because they're saying, well, actually, you weren't furloughed, you were working. And that's the conundrum we're in, because we just don't have that level of detail. So I think that's probably all we're going to cover in this introductory piece. I know we've got a number of questions that are coming through, and I think we'll probably pick off those as we go along, if that's okay, Sarah. You're on mute again.
Yep, I'm off mute now. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much, Rob. That was very, very comprehensive. So hopefully people have found that useful. Rob, there are some questions coming through there, so if you'd have a look at those, and we'll maybe pop back to you shortly. One of the questions I'm constantly being asked by particularly directors of small limited companies who just work for themselves, is whether they are self-employed or employed. Now, if you're a director of a limited company, you're an employee. So the self-employment income support scheme that we're going to talk about doesn't apply to you. However, as Rob's just said, you can, under certain circumstances, self-furlough as a director of a limited company. Now, that is new. Under previous furlough rules, directors could not furlough themselves because it effectively means that you do not have a business that's working. But during these times, it appears that you can, but need to be very, very careful about what you do. So I said I'd talk about the various tax deferments, and there's been a couple of questions that have come up as well. VAT deferral has been touched upon. There's going to be an automatic deferral. You don't need to contact HMRC. Your VAT will automatically be deferred. But as Janet rightly said, HMRC will not cancel any direct debits. If you've still got a direct debit set up, that money will be taken on the due date of your on your normal due date. Now, there's also then a deferral, VAT deferral scheme from the 20th of March. So the end of June one is that they'll be taken then, but from the 20th of March until the 30th of June. So if you've got a March VAT quarter end, that the payment of the VAT liability will be deferred until the end of the 2021 tax year. So you've got a very long extension on that for the March, April, May and June VAT quarters. With regards to time to pay arrangements, so for corporation tax, for pay-as-you-earn, HALE and NI, those will be judged on a specific case-by-case basis as they are now. Now there is a hotline number for that, and we'll put that in the chat as well, or send it out to you. Anybody can access it, but you need to agree with HMRC the terms of your deal effectively. And there may be, while there will be no liability or no interest due on the VAT deferment or the payments on account that I'll talk about in a moment, there may well be interest due on any corporation tax, pay-as-you-earn, national insurance liabilities which you choose to defer. So be careful about that. I think we've had clients that have been quoted about 3% interest on those payments. So really, if you can pay, you should pay. With regards to the announcement about self-employment tax and payments on account being delayed until January 2021, I'll get my dates right. There have been some slightly mixed messages about this as well. And I think this morning that has just been made clearer that it will apply to all registered for self-assessment, not just for self-employment. But that message is changing constantly. So again, I will check HMRC's guidelines after this call and update you, because yesterday it looked as if it was only for those who are actually registered as self-employed that can defer their payments on account to January. This morning it looks as if it might be extended to all, so including the directors who have payments on account due to dividends. Okay, so moving on from that, again, post any questions if you have them down the side. VAT, by the way, if you should still file your VAT returns on time. You still should, you still have a responsibility to submit payroll on time, to file your corporation tax returns and accounts on time, as well as your self-assessment tax returns. And if you are the type of business that is due a VAT refund, VAT refunds will still be processed under normal timelines and will still come through. So the refunds aren't going to be delayed until 2021, just the payments and the liabilities. So self-employment income support scheme. I'm sure most of you will have heard about this on the news last night, and the finer details are coming out now. But basically, if I just run through the guidelines to that, is that who can apply? You can apply if you have submitted a tax return in the year 2018-2019. So at the moment, there is no support available for somebody that started a business or started as self-employed after the 5th of April 2019. But if you're self-employed in the year prior to that, you will have access to this scheme. And the scheme is open to all of those who've had trading profits of less than £50,000 per year, and will be looked at for the 3 years up to and including the 2018-19 tax year. And then it will be 80% of profits up to £2,500 as for employees. You can apply if you've been trading 2018-19, have still traded through 2019-20, and are planning to continue trading as self-employed through 2021. For those of you that have had profits in each year self-employed of more than £50,000, you will not be able to access this scheme. For those of you whose profits have fluctuated around that amount, so for example, you might have gone over 50,000 in 1 year and been under 50,000 in 2 years, HMRC will look at an average of those 3 years and as long as the average of the 3 years is under £50,000, you will be able to access the scheme. The scheme is going to be accessed automatically. So, and HMRC are being overwhelmed by queries on all sorts of things. So they ask you, please, not to contact HMRC to try to access these funds or to access the scheme, that they will contact you. Now, what other small questions have we had there? Yes, if you haven't yet filed your tax return for the 2018-19 year, you're late. But if you haven't filed the taxes for that year, you've got an extension to do that by the 23rd of April 2020. So if you or anybody that you know is late with those returns, get them in now and make sure those are filed, and that will still be considered. If it's not submitted by then, it will not be considered, and you will not have access to any funds under that scheme. They're hoping that the funds will become available by the end of June, and like the employment scheme, it will be based on 3 months, and unlike the employment scheme, they're hoping to give you that money in one lump sum to make the assessment, I suppose in the same way as self-employed people pay their taxes in one lump sum, that they will make the assessment of how much you're due, and they will pay you 3 months worth of that assessment. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm just having a look at some of the questions you've sent through to see if there are others that we haven't touched upon. Matt Draper, corporation tax bill, delay in payment, I think I've covered that. David O'Neill, we've covered self-employment, but again, pop your questions down because I've just gone very, very briefly over that. Mark, small company directors, as Rob mentioned, there is the possibility of furloughing yourself, but be very, very careful. Very careful about what work you do undertake and what work you're seen to undertake. The ICAEW have a very clear example of an employer, a director of a limited company, 2 directors of a limited company who run a pub and have 3 full-time staff, and they live in and above the pub. And this is a real life example. So they have said that in this instance that the 3 employees can be furloughed, but the 2 directors, because they will be continuing with the administration for the business, even though that pub has been closed down, because they'll be continuing with the business administration, they cannot be furloughed. So that's really important, and they're going to need to find another way to cash for themselves through that time. Gillian has asked the question, can you still work whilst receiving SEISS? And yes, so that's slightly different from furloughed employees. So our understanding at the moment is that for the self-employed, you can still continue to work while receiving that funding. What happens for people who've only been self-employed for the year 2018-19? They will take, they would like to take an average of 3 years, but if you've only been self-employed in 2018-19, they will use that year as an example. And I appreciate that for some of you, your startup year is often the year where your income is at its most limited, but they're having to make some calls. Let's just have a little look. Rob, have you been able to look at any of those questions that have come through? And there's Nick Evans, in the case of a director being able to justify, dividends are excluded. Dividends are completely excluded. So if you are the director of a limited company and you pay yourself the nominal £719 a month, or 12,500 to use up your personal allowance and the rest by dividends, you can have a maximum of 80% of the amount that you pay yourself via salary. So it's only the salary point that's included. Is VAT still payable on imports? John is asking. John, our understanding at present is that VAT would still be payable on imports. However, again, if that's coming through, I think you said it's coming through in April, that would mean that hopefully, and again, I'm caveating all of this with the details are still a little bit sketchy, but that the payment of the VAT on that is likely to be delayed until the end of the 2021 tax year. So for me, that means until March 2021. So hopefully that should give you time to get through this and have the business back up and running and income coming through. Few people logging off. That's hope you found it useful. That's no problem.
I'll just pick up the question from Adam Rutledge about field service engineers who are not able to do site visits, but they can't do the primary role, but they are doing other work. As you've put there that you can pay them, my understanding of the rules are that you shouldn't be furloughing them at this point in time while they are completing tasks. The concept behind the scheme is it's a job retention scheme, so if you are able to pay staff, then they shouldn't be furloughed at this point in time. It's there when you're at the point where you can't afford to pay staff costs that you should be implementing the furlough. But that's why they've still got jobs to do. If they haven't got jobs to do in the future, then that's probably something we need to revisit.
Okay, so can I just clarify that? Because that's what I'm so, and it's how long do you decide that actually they're going to do a useful job? At the moment, actually, we have got mañana tasks that really need that, they always tell us they're too busy to do. Well, now you can do it.
Yeah.
But, if we're still sitting here in July, and they still all that's done and their paperwork is beautiful, but I can still pay them, am I allowed to furlough them? That's what I don't understand. Is this, it's this affordability to pay versus actually you're sitting doing nothing.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen anything, Sarah, that gives any definition about affordability and whether you can.
I haven't. And what I was going to say is, Adam, we can't necessarily go into everybody's specific.
Yeah. No.
My understanding is that actually, once they have no role to do, we can furlough. No role.
Okay, that's fine. So it's no role to do rather than the affordability to pay.
And then the next point to that, and I think somebody's asked this question a bit further up. I can't quite see where it was, but. While the furlough scheme is in place initially for 3 months, it is you can furlough somebody. You have to furlough them for a minimum of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So you could furlough it. If all of the work dries up, you can furlough people for 3 weeks, and then you can bring them back in. Likewise, if you furloughed, 3 members of staff and have 3 working to try and keep things running, and one of the 3 that's working becomes ill, then you can rotate. Once the furloughed members of staff have been on furlough for 3 weeks, you can rotate and pull one of them in to replace the person who has gone off sick. That makes sense. Karen Robinson's asked one here for you, Rob. Employee move into the south of England and who is due to leave at the end of March, so they can't be furloughed by their new employer. Is it possible for Karen's company to extend their notice period, keep them on a little bit longer, to give them that support and then furlough him?
Well, I think technically, as long as they're an employee of the existing company, then the furlough rules apply. You would have to have some sort of rescinding notice and then recommitting notice or extending notice. So something would come from the employee to say that this is my request, that I'm staying here until May, June, July, whenever. And I would think it's belt and braces for the employer to then confirm that back in writing. So you've got something there. They're still under a contract of employment, therefore they should be able to still access this scheme. Okay.
My lights have just gone off because I haven't moved for long enough. Thank you, Rob, for that. And let's look. How do employers get reimbursed for SSP? Details TBC. Unfortunately, they're not doing it in the same way as they do for MAP pay, and it's been taken off your Pays Your NI. But as soon as we have more details on that, we'll send that out. And they can self-cert. Really, there are downloadable self-cert forms from the NHS 111 site, which they can use. But again, I think that to a certain extent is also to the employer's discretion. You can agree what you do with them. what else have we not answered? I think we've answered the pay as you earn and VAT. I think we've answered yours, David, Valentine, hopefully. Matt, thanks for jumping in there. Is your pension income included in the calculation towards is your pension income included in the calculation towards eligibility for 80% government support? Now, and I'll ask Rob to correct me here, is that, so if you have more than one employment, you can be furloughed from each employment. That's up to the employer. Therefore, if you have income from a pension, my assumption, and this is assumption only, this is not advice, my assumption would be, therefore, from your employment, you can still be furloughed, because it's the employer that is paying that. Now, if you were looking to claim universal credits or something like that, no, you wouldn't be able to, because you have that that income coming. And that reminds me of another point in the self-employment income support scheme, is that you can access that so long as at least half of your income over the qualifying periods has come from self-employment, if that makes sense. So if 90% of your income comes from a pension, for example, or from rental property, and 20%, 90 and 20, you can tell I'm not the accountant, 80% comes from there and 20% comes from self-employment, then you cannot access the self-employment income support scheme. David Bellin, you might have seen me smiling earlier whenever somebody was talking about something very serious. I apologise. David, it's water, not gin.
Who knew? Who knew?
Right, what else have we got? I think we've got a lot of people dropping off now. Look, it's 5 to 10. We didn't have time to do the breakout rooms, which might have been a really nice networking kind of thing to do. We're going to continue to run a monthly, if not more regular, update, and we're going to try and make a monthly one at the end of the month, replace what we have done with subs in the past and make that a lot more network and a lot more working together. But we also, if you found this useful and you would like us to run another of these, I think Matt, Janet, Rob, would you all be happy to do another of these for people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, let us know if you think that would be something that would be useful. If I could figure all of this out, I might have done a poll, but we'll leave that. Now,
and can I just make a plea as well for everyone who is in the same boat as me, director, small company. There isn't a lot of clarity out there about the self-furloughing and the tasks. Write to your MP. If you want, I can send you an email and you can copy the text that I've used. We just need clarity on what you can and cannot do, because HMRC do retain the right to audit any claim after the event, and I'd hate for anyone to fall foul when they're trying to do the right thing. So if we get that clarity up front, I think that'll help us all.
That's a really good point, Rob. Thank you. So if you'd share that, that'll be useful. I'm just going to leave you with the comments and the questions from Sharon, Lisa, and Rachel, which I thought were very interesting to think about. Sharon asked, what ideas have people had to diversify their normal business if it's fallen off a cliff in order to survive? And I think that's a great question. I think we should all be thinking about not focusing just purely on what we can't do and what we can get from support from others, from the government, from grants, etc., but thinking about, well, what can we do? How can we change things? What can we do differently? What could we offer differently? Can we offer and provide a service online? And can we do something? Lisa's asked us, they're all Lisa's asked a slightly similar question. How differently are businesses now viewing the possibilities of home working for the future? Again, I think that's a great question, and certainly it's changed. I would never have done this. I've known that I should be, but this has forced me to get online and do things a little bit differently. And Rachel Ashmore, who's from Hot PR, has said that working in PR, they've seen a huge shift in journalists searching for good news stories. And she was wondering if anybody else has seen surprising outcomes. So you know what? I think that might be a really, really good one to look at another time, and to really focus on what we can do and focus on some of the positives. And, you know, for now, thanks for those who attended. I hope you found it useful. Look after yourselves, look after your loved ones, look after your mental health at this time, as well as your physical health. So, you know, do get outside when you can, safely, and just, you know, keep positive and keep looking out for one another.
Yeah, I recommend the Joe Wicks daily PE session if you want to make yourself look like an idiot in your kitchen or lounge or wherever. It's a great 30-minute workout.
Excellent. Excellent. John, people that are asking more questions now, we'll pick up with those separately. So thank you all very much. We stayed to time. How's that? Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
I'm going to end the meeting now, and I will figure out what to do to send a recording to everybody. If you think you'd find that useful. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you.